Hi, everybody. My name is Sandy Boucher, and welcome back to my world. After several weeks on the road, and don't get me wrong, I love being in your agencies and in your communities, but now I get to rest and I'm back in my home office, and that's always a joy for me. This is where all the fun begins. This is where I design my seminars and where I even get to create a video or two for you. Now, in my last video, I promised you that I wasn't sending you any more videos or any more emails unless there was value added. It had to be worth your time to watch the video so that you would get something out of it, or I wasn't going to send it out to you. Well, today I'm going to keep that promise. Today we're going to talk about two things. The first one, tobacco ties. The second one, Christmas gift giving. Now, first, tobacco ties. And I hope you've all seen a tobacco tie, a little bit of tobacco tied up inside a piece of material, usually wrapped with a ribbon. They come in different sizes. They come in different colors. But what's come to my attention is the fact that even though Indigenous people and agencies have been giving these out for years, literally for as long as I can remember, somehow along the way, we stopped giving the teaching that goes with the tobacco ties. And I take full responsibility for all the times I gave out a tobacco tie and didn't explain it. I love that someone finally, in a safe environment in one of my seminars, shared that they keep getting these things and they have no idea what to do with them. And I'm not talking about non-Indigenous people. There are so many Indigenous men, women, and youth out there that are receiving tobacco ties, or in one case, I even heard of youth at an event being asked to give out tobacco ties to participants, and they didn't even know why. That reminds me of all of those places where you see the 7 grandfather teachings nicely framed and hung on the wall, but they're not living the teachings. The tobacco ties are so much more than just the physical offering of tobacco. We need to share the teaching so that the power of that teaching reaches the person receiving the tie. So what I'm going to share with you now is my teachings, what I was instructed and what I believe and what I practice when I give out tobacco ties. Depending on your nation, your region, whether you even use tobacco ties, there's a really good chance that your teachings are different, and that is perfectly okay. Don't send me a nasty email. I'm not going to pretend to know your teachings. That would be disrespectful. I can only share mine, but if yours are different, please consider this video a heads up that you need to be sharing those teachings with the people you encounter. So from my perspective, there are 3 different times you give out a tobacco tie, keeping in mind that tobacco is considered one of our sacred medicines. So the first time you offer tobacco, or first instance, is when you're asking a knowledge keeper or an elder to perform some kind of ceremony for you. Maybe it's a naming ceremony for your baby. Maybe it's a healing song that they're going to do at a powwow. Maybe it's a sweat lodge ceremony if you're in need of healing. Whatever the ceremony is, and there's a whole lot more attached to that. You don't just randomly request these ceremonies. But when you're ready and knowledgeable enough to ask for that ceremony to be performed, you would offer tobacco. It's considered an equal exchange, a sacred medicine for the sacred knowledge contained in that ceremony. So both sides remain equal in knowledge and wisdom. It's an equal exchange, and that's super important. Now, the second time I was taught that you would offer tobacco is pretty close to the first one, except this time, rather than a ceremony, what you're asking for is wisdom or knowledge. I may offer tobacco to one of my elders to ask for guidance as an adult female or as a woman in a relationship, to ask for their expertise and their input on something I'm struggling with. Again, sacred medicine being offered for the equal value of that wisdom and knowledge being shared. But there's a third way, and that is 90% of the time the reason I offer tobacco. It's the reason I've offered tobacco to my adult children 100 different times. And it's the reason I often offer tobacco ties to my participants in seminar. When I offer tobacco in those cases, what I'm asking my participants or the recipient, whoever it is, to do is to listen to my words with their heart and not their head. And what I mean by that is if you stay in your head, which is a mainstream European Canadian way of thinking, so don't beat yourself up for that. But to stay in your head is to stay logical, to listen to the definition of the words, to debate in your mind whether that was the best way to explain it. Would you have used another word? And so on and so forth. To listen with your heart is to hear the feelings behind the words. I think we've all sat with someone who was hurting, who was grieving, and maybe they didn't express themselves perfectly, but we knew enough, we understood what the message was, the feeling behind the words. It wasn't a time to correct grammar. It was a time to truly listen with your heart and not your head. So I wanted to share that with you today because, as I said, in the future, if you receive a tobacco tie, you can ask why, or maybe you can realize that you can see that it was one of the reasons I just listed. If you receive a tobacco tie, the idea is that the medicine must be returned to Mother Earth. Now, I always suggest that it's put someplace that no one's going to walk, whether it's at the base of a tree, and especially if that's a sacred place for you that you go to for your healing and for your quiet reflection. That would be a beautiful place to offer the tobacco. It can be offered in water. It can be offered into a sacred fire or a fire at your camp if that's something that's sacred and beautiful to you. In the case of putting it at a tree or in the water, I actually always undo the tie and set the tobacco free. Then the material and the ribbon can either be reused or discarded. When it's offered into a fire, then you can keep the whole bundle. These are not meant to be collected, and I've heard that so many people are collecting them because they didn't know what to do with them. Well, now you know. You offer it back to Mother Earth and you ask Creator for help. Help to understand whatever teaching you just received, help with whatever challenge you're facing, or just help along your journey as we continue to that place, our destination. So I hope that made sense to you. If you have any questions, you could always send me an email. I'm happy to help out. And again, if your teachings are different, this is just consider it a nudge to share those teachings with the people that matter to you, because these teachings have to live on and we must be sharing them. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk to you about today is it is that time of year, and every year people are asking me about my books for Christmas giving. Honorary Indian continues to be an amazing resource for anyone in need of healing. If you know someone who's grieving or struggling because their relationship ended, then Honorary Indian, my first book, I highly, highly recommend. The link is in the email below. Her Mother's Daughter is the next stage for that person who's done their healing, but maybe just needs, they're still on their path, they're still trying to find their way, and it's just a great daily motivational guide to help you really find and build your wisdom. The third book is The Path. If you're interested in moving forward as an individual, a community, a municipality, if you're interested in Canadian reconciliation and what we need to do, either as Indigenous or non-Indigenous people, then The Path is for you. If you know an Indigenous person who is working in a non-Indigenous business or entity and they're struggling, well, then we need to talk about my Indigenous support program. And if you are a non-Indigenous business who would like to get better at working with Indigenous peoples, Then we need to talk about my consultant on call services or even an assessment under my Indigenous Engagement Canada organization. So many offerings. All of the links are in the email below. If you want one of those things for Christmas, get hold of me soon, because if it's a book, we're going to have to get it shipped out to you in time. So please don't leave that to the last minute. Until next time, I truly hope you absorb the information today, and I hope that it was of benefit to you. Until next time, talk to you soon. I love you. Bye-bye.